And I think for that I have to say thanks to my friend and my brother, Professor Rahmatullah Khan. It was his books that I read. One of the most important principles of Abdu's thought is the struggle to reconcile reason, akal, and revelation, wahyu. The relationship between reason and revelation has been the most problematic issue since the early Islamic centuries. According to Abdu, reason and revelation cannot come into conflict with one another because religion and science are twin sources of Islam and that they are active in different areas. Therefore, reason or akal, according to Abdu, is the closest friend of revelation as it helps men to understand the sacred text. If man cannot use akal properly, he remains incapable of showing due respect to God who created him. In the chapter about education, Asad clearly emphasizes, a few years passed before I stumbled across the most important interpretation of God's word on this matter when I read the book Islam at the Crossroad by none other than Muhammad Asad. In the chapter about education, Asad clearly emphasizes that the Quran is full of exhortations to learn, so that you may become wise, so that you may think, and that you may know. Asad also emphasizes on the importance of reason, akal, in the Quran. In his elaboration of the verse, وَعَلَّمَ الْآدَمَ أَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, he imparted unto Adam the names of all things. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 31. The Arabic term ism in the verse implies, according to all philologists, an expression conveying the knowledge of a thing. According to Asad, in philosophical terminology, it denotes a concept. The subsequent verses show that owing to this God-given knowledge of those names, or conceptual thinking, man is, in certain respect, superior to the angels. The names are a symbolic expression for the power of defining terms, the power of articulate thinking, which is peculiar to human being, and which enables him, in the words of the Quran, to be God's Khalifah on earth. Clearly, the attitude of Muslims nowadays, who have the tendency to resort to literal interpretation of the text or nas, and refuting anything that falls within the realm of reason or akal, contribute to the stagnation and decaying condition of the Ummah itself. This articulation in Islam at the Crossroads had a very profound effect on my mind and my soul. It answers the question that I have been asking myself all this while. What was it that was so special about being a mortal being, with temptations, and definitely not free from committing sins, to be more superior than that, the ever-obedient angels? The sudden enlightenment led me to search for the message of the Quran. It answers many difficult questions that I have regarding this religion, especially on the issues of predestination, the doctrine of abrogation or an-nasikh wal mansukh, whether the Quran is time-bound or timeless, the seemingly contradictory verses of the Quran with modern science, and other pertinent issues. Throughout the pages of the message of the Quran by Asad, I found the answers to the questions that have been bugging my mind. The most precious knowledge that I gained was the reformist agenda of Muhammad Abdu was even clearer when I read the message. The main problem to many Muslims nowadays is whether Islam will find a way to devise a system between faith and modernity. A century ago, Muhammad Abdu had argued that while certain aspects of religion would remain immutable, especially those concerning ibadah and aqidah, or known as as-sawabi, the immutables. However, issues of governance should be addressed through human reason, since they fall under the realms of al-mutaghayyirat, the changing. It was Abdul's reformist agenda and rationalism then, which his emphasis on reason and God's justice, which seemed as if it might be able to ground a dynamic Islamic theology capable of successfully meeting the challenges of modernity. Alas, what we see today, these promising attempts were thwarted by the rise of the literal Salafis and its ramifications. One of the main principles of Abdul's reform agenda is asserting a claim to renewed interpretation or ijtihad of Islamic law based on requirements of social justice maslahat of his own era. According to Abdul, where there seems to be a contradiction between nas and maslahat, then maslahat must be given precedence. Abdul supports the principle based on the notion that Islamic law was revealed to serve inter alia human welfare. Hence, all matters which preserve the well-being of the society are in line with the objectives of the Sharia and therefore should be pursued and legally recognized. Abdul believed that independent thinking or ijtihad would enlarge the scope of knowledge because most of the aspects of human welfare or muamalat can be further elaborated with the use of reason or akal. He pointed out that since fiqh means understanding, whoever makes a legal decision on the basis of the literal meaning of the text or the nas only, without understanding the spirit of the law or ruhul sharia, is not a jurist. He is not a faqih. In this regard, he reintroduced the legal maxim, inna ibrata bil maqasid wal ma'ani wa bil alfaz wal mabani. The consideration is to be given to the intentions and meanings, not to merely words and the phrases. Consequently, Abdul also opposed the literal or zahiriyah trend and understand of the text without recourse to reason. Abdul justified this use of ijtihad on the basis of the following Quranic verses. And strive hard in God's cause with all the striving that is due to Him. It is He who has elected to you to carry His message and has laid no hardship on you in anything that pertains to religion. Al-Hajj, verse 78. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. And He has laid no hardship on you in anything that pertains to religion. It was this reform agenda of Muhammad Abdul that was clearly explained by Asad while interpreting the verses of the Quran. Considering that the reform agenda is a raison d'etre of the Islamic Renaissance Front, it is our obligation then to make it the intellectual basis of our organization, reachable to the majority Malay-speaking Muslims in our country. We believe that as the world continues to change, the true spirit of reform and renewal, there is a requirement for a second look at the Quran and other Islamic texts. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farooq, for sharing us your deeply personal and intellectual account of your discovery of Muhammad Asad's inspirational philosophies. We now continue our excursion into Muhammad Asad's works with Professor Kamal Hassan, former rector of IIU, who's going to expound a bit more on the notion of reflection in the Quran that Muhammad Asad puts forth. So without further ado, let's welcome Professor Kamal.